Ambassador Daniel Mercer stood at the entrance of the great council chamber and took a deep breath. The massive doors before him were carved from stone that was older than human civilization. Behind those doors waited the representatives of 47 species, all of them watching, all of them judging. "Are you ready, sir?" Lieutenant Katie Shaw asked. She stood beside him in her formal uniform, her hand resting near her sidearm out of habit. Daniel smiled at his young security officer. "I'd been preparing for this moment for 3 years. Katie, humanity is about to become a recognized member of the galactic community. I think I can manage a speech." The doors opened slowly, and golden light spilled out from within. Daniel walked forward with Katie 2 steps behind him. The council chamber was enormous, built in a circle with rising seats that reached toward a domed ceiling painted with stars. Hundreds of alien faces turned to watch the 2 humans enter. At the center of the chamber stood a raised platform where the High Council sat. 5 beings of different species occupied the seats of power. In the middle sat High Counselor Zethron of the Valorian Dominion. His gray skin and 4 eyes made his expression difficult to read, but Daniel had learned to recognize the slight tilt of his head that meant displeasure. Daniel reached the speaking platform and bowed respectfully. "High Council, honored representatives, I come before you as the voice of Earth and all humanity. We are grateful for this opportunity to join the galactic family." Zethron raised one of his 4 hands for silence. The chamber went quiet. "Ambassador Mercer," Zethron said, his voice cold and formal, "before we proceed with the membership ceremony, there is a matter that must be addressed." Daniel felt a small twist of worry in his stomach. This was not part of the program. "Of course, High Counselor. How may I help?" Zethron pressed a button on his chair, and holographic images appeared in the air above the chamber. They showed human ships near a region of space marked with Valorian symbols. "These images were captured 6 cycles ago," Zethron continued. "Human military vessels were found operating inside Valorian protected territory. This is a direct violation of the treaties your species signed when first contact was established." Daniel stared at the images with confusion. "High Counselor, I have no knowledge of any such operation. These images must be... Are you calling the Valorian Dominion liars, Ambassador?" Zethron's voice grew sharp. "No, I am simply saying there must be some mistake. Earth has followed every rule and agreement. We have worked hard to prove ourselves worthy of membership." Counselor Yemeth of the Kef Collective leaned forward. The insect-like being's wings twitched with what might have been concern. "Perhaps we should investigate further before making accusations. The humans have been cooperative partners for..." "The evidence is clear," Zethron interrupted. "And this council has already voted on the matter." Daniel's blood went cold. "Voted? On what matter?" Zethron stood from his seat. "The Galactic Council has determined that humanity represents a threat to the stability of civilized space. Your species is too aggressive, too unpredictable, and too dangerous to be allowed further expansion." The vote was 31 to 16 in favor of immediate action. "What action?" Daniel demanded. His voice echoed through the suddenly silent chamber. Zethron's 4 eyes fixed on the human ambassador. "You are to be made an example, Ambassador Mercer. Let the humans understand that the galaxy will not tolerate their violent nature." Before Daniel could respond, armed guards rushed forward from hidden positions around the chamber. Katie moved instantly, pulling her sidearm and stepping in front of Daniel. "Stay back." She shouted. She managed to fire twice before an energy blast struck her chest. She fell without a sound. "Katie." Daniel dropped to his knees beside her, but her eyes were already empty. He looked up at Zethron with fury and despair. She was 26 years old. She had a family waiting for her on Earth. How could you do this? "Humans always talk of family," Zethron said. "Perhaps your family should have taught you better manners." He nodded to the guards. Daniel Mercer did not beg. He did not cry. He stood up straight and looked directly at Zethron. "You have made a terrible mistake," he said quietly. "You think killing me will frighten humanity into submission. You do not understand us at all." "We understand enough," Zithran replied. "We know that your species has only 40 warships. We know that your technology is primitive compared to ours. What could humanity possibly do?" Daniel almost smiled. "You will find out." The energy blast hit him in the chest, and he fell beside Katie Shaw. Zethron turned to the recording devices that had captured everything. "Let this broadcast reach every corner of the galaxy. Let all species know that the Council protects civilized space from barbaric threats. Humanity has been dealt with." What Zethron did not know was that a small human ship called the USS Resolute was stationed just outside the neutral zone. Captain Nathan Cole had been waiting to escort Ambassador Mercer home after the ceremony. Instead, he watched the broadcast on his bridge with his crew standing in horrified silence. "Sir," his communications officer whispered. "What do we do?" Nathan's hands were shaking, but his voice was steady. "Record everything. Prepare a priority transmission to Earth Command. Maximum encryption." "They killed them," another crew member said, tears running down her face. "They just killed them." Nathan turned to face his crew. Their eyes were filled with shock, grief, and something else. Something that looked like the beginning of rage. "I know," he said. "And Earth needs to know too. Send the transmission now. Then set course for home at maximum speed." The Resolute turned away from Varth Prime and vanished into faster-than-light travel. Behind them, the Council celebrated what they believed was a successful display of power. They had no idea what they had just started. In the Council chamber, Councillor Yemeth remained in their seat long after the others had left. The insect-like being stared at the two human bodies that still lay on the floor. "You fools," Yemeth whispered to the empty room. "You have seen humans at peace. You have never seen them at war." But no one was listening. The broadcast continued spreading across the galaxy, showing the execution again and again. It was meant to be a warning to humanity. Instead, it became a declaration of war. And somewhere in the cold depths of space, the Resolute raced toward Earth, carrying news that would change everything. The transmission from the USS Resolute reached Earth at 3 in the morning, Geneva time. Within 1 hour, every world leader was awake. Within 2 hours, the video of Ambassador Mercer's execution was playing on every screen on the planet. Admiral Patricia Walls watched the broadcast for the 5th time in her office at United Earth Command. Each time she watched it, she felt the same cold fire burning in her chest. Daniel Mercer had been her friend. They had served together 20 years ago, back when humanity was still learning to reach the stars. Now he was dead, murdered by creatures who called themselves civilized. Her door opened, and Commander Derek Holt entered. The intelligence officer looked like he had not slept in days, though it had only been hours since the news arrived. "Admiral, President Grant is calling an emergency meeting. All military commanders are required to attend." Patricia stood and straightened her uniform. "What's the public reaction?" Derek shook his head in amazement. "I've never seen anything like it, ma'am. Every nation on Earth is unified. Countries that have been enemies for centuries are now standing together. The protests outside the Council species embassies have been massive but completely peaceful. People are angry, but they're waiting to see what we do." "Good," Patricia said. "That means they trust us to do the right thing." The emergency meeting was held in a secure bunker beneath the Geneva headquarters. President Marcus Grant sat at the head of a long table surrounded by admirals, generals, and advisors. His face was calm, but his eyes showed the weight of what he was about to decide. "You've all seen the footage," he began. Ambassador Mercer and Lieutenant Shaw were executed without trial, without warning, and without cause. The evidence the Council presented was fabricated. Our ships were never in Valorian territory. Dr. Laura Vance, the Xenopolitical advisor, spoke up. Mr. President, our analysis confirms that the images were altered. The Council knew they were sending our people to their deaths before they even arrived. Marcus nodded slowly. They planned this. The question now is how we respond. One of the generals leaned forward. Sir, we need to consider our position carefully. The Council controls 47 species. Their combined fleet numbers in the thousands. According to their own intelligence reports, they believe we have only 40 warships. A thin smile crossed Admiral Wells' face. That's what they believe. Commander Holt, would you like to share the actual numbers? Derek stood and activated a holographic display. A map of human-controlled space appeared, dotted with hundreds of glowing points. The Council's intelligence is based on what we allowed them to see, Derek explained. Our public fleet consists of 42 vessels. Our actual fleet, including ships built in hidden shipyards on the dark side of the moon and inside hollowed asteroids, numbers 437 combat-ready warships. Silence filled the room. President Grant stared at the display. We've been hiding our true strength. Yes, sir, Patricia said. After first contact, our early leaders decided that we should appear weak until we understood the galaxy better. It seems their caution was justified. What about weapons technology? Another advisor asked. Derek changed the display to show technical specifications. The Council species believe our weapons are primitive energy cannons. In reality, we've developed plasma torpedoes that can pierce any known shield technology. Our point defense systems can track and destroy incoming missiles with 98% accuracy. And our ships are faster than anything the Council has. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with responsibility. I never wanted war. Daniel Mercer never wanted war. He spent his entire career trying to build peace between our species and theirs. He looked around the table, but they killed him for it. They killed him and broadcast it to the galaxy as a message. He stood up, and everyone in the room stood with him. We will send our own message. Admiral Wells, you will take command of the combined fleet. Your orders are to prepare a full military response against all Council species that voted for Ambassador Mercer's execution. Understood, Mr. President, Patricia said. But Admiral, Marcus continued, I want to be clear about something. We are not fighting for revenge. We are fighting for survival and for justice. We will not become the monsters they claim we are. We will not target civilian populations. We will not commit the same crimes they committed against us. Patricia nodded with respect. We will fight with honor, sir. After the meeting ended, Patricia gathered her senior officers in a separate room. Captain Nathan Cole was there, having arrived on Earth just hours before. The young captain still looked shaken by what he had witnessed. Captain Cole, Patricia said, you saw what happened. You brought us the truth. Now I need you to help us deliver the response. Nathan straightened. Whatever you need, Admiral. You'll command Strike Group 7. Your target will be the Valorian homeworld's orbital defenses. When we arrive, I want those defenses down within the first hour. It will be done. Patricia looked at all of them. These men and women who would soon lead humanity into its first true galactic war. The Council thinks we are weak. They think we are primitive. They think they can kill our people and face no consequences. Her voice hardened. In 3 weeks, we will show them how wrong they are. Across Earth, the mobilization began. Shipyards that had been hidden for decades came alive with activity. Civilian transport vessels were quickly converted into support ships. Men and women who had never considered military service lined up at recruitment centers, ready to defend their species. The galaxy had seen humanity at peace. Now they would see something else entirely. In Geneva, President Grant addressed the world. His speech was broadcast to every nation, every colony, every human being who could hear it. They wanted to teach us fear, he said. Instead, they have taught us unity. They have taught us that we cannot trust others to value our lives. So we will show them the value of human life ourselves. Not through cruelty, but through strength. Not through hatred, but through justice. He paused, and when he continued, his voice was like steel. We did not start this war, but we will finish it. The cheering could be heard from Space Dot and in the silence of the void. 400 human warships began their journey toward the staging area near Neptune, where they would gather in the darkness and wait for the order to strike. The Council had made their move. Now it was humanity's turn. 3 weeks passed, and the galaxy heard nothing from humanity. In the council chambers of Vareth Prime, High Counselor Zethran sat in his seat of power with growing satisfaction. The execution of the human ambassador had sent exactly the message he intended. The primitive species had retreated to their small corner of space, too afraid to challenge the might of 47 civilized worlds. It seems the humans have accepted their place, said Counselor Dreth, a tall being with scales that shifted colors based on his mood. Today they were bright gold, the color of confidence. Perhaps they are not as aggressive as we feared. Zethran nodded slowly. They understand now that the galaxy belongs to those with true power. Their little fleet of 40 ships could never stand against us. From the corner of the chamber, Counselor Yemeth watched in silence. The insect-like being had spoken against the execution from the beginning, but their warnings had been ignored. Now they felt the weight of dread growing heavier each day. High Counselor, Yemeth said carefully, I remain concerned about the human silence. Zethran's 4 eyes turned toward Yemeth with annoyance. Concerned? They have done nothing for 3 weeks. What is there to be concerned about? That is precisely what worries me, Yemeth replied. Humans are not known for doing nothing when attacked. Their history is filled with stories of patience, followed by terrible violence. They call it sleeping giants being awakened. I fear we have awakened something we do not understand. Several council members laughed. Dreth's scales flashed with amusement. You give the primitives too much credit, Yemeth, Dreth said. They are a young species with limited technology. They probably cannot even travel to our space without our permission. Yemeth's wings twitched with frustration. Have you studied their history? They dropped atomic weapons on their own cities during their internal wars. They survived ice ages, plagues, and famines that would have destroyed most species. They do not give up. They do not forgive. And they do not forget. Enough, Zethran said firmly. The matter is closed. Humanity has been dealt with. Now let us move on to other business. Yemeth fell silent, but their worry did not fade. Something was coming. They could feel it in their very bones. Far across the galaxy, near the cold outer planet called Neptune, 400 human warships floated in perfect formation. They maintained complete radio silence. No transmissions entered or left the fleet. To anyone watching, that region of space appeared completely empty. Admiral Patricia Wells stood on the bridge of her flagship, the USS Sovereign. Through the viewport, she could see dozens of other ships, their running lights dimmed to near invisibility. Beyond them were hundreds more, stretching into the darkness like a hidden army waiting to strike. Captain Nathan Cole's voice came through the private command channel. All strike groups report ready, Admiral. We've been holding position for 6 days without detection. Good, Patricia replied. What's the crew morale? Determined, ma'am. Everyone knows why we're here. They're ready to fight. Patricia allowed herself a small smile. The Council had no idea what was coming. Their spies had reported Earth's public fleet of 42 ships. They had seen humans retreat from the border systems. They thought they had one. They were wrong. Commander Ryan Torres, the fleet's tactical officer, approached with a datapad. Admiral, final intelligence confirms our targets. The Council species have maintained their normal defensive positions. No increased alerts, no mobilization. They truly believe we're not coming. Arrogance makes people blind, Patricia said. They see what they want to see. She turned to address the bridge crew. Young faces looked back at her, filled with trust and determination. Many of them had friends or family on Earth who had watched the execution broadcast. All of them had felt the pain of seeing their ambassador murdered. In 18 hours, we will begin Operation Reckoning, Patricia said. 12 strike groups will emerge simultaneously at 12 strategic locations across Council space. Our targets are military installations only. We will not fire on civilian ships or stations unless they fire first. She paused, choosing her next words carefully. I know many of you want revenge for what they did to Ambassador Mercer and Lieutenant Shaw. That anger is natural and justified. But we are not fighting to become like them. We are fighting to show them that humanity will not be bullied, will not be murdered, and will not be erased from the galaxy. The crew listened in silence. The Council thinks they know what humans are capable of. They have studied our art, our music, our peaceful achievements. They have seen our diplomats and scientists. Her voice hardened. They have never seen our warriors. They have never faced humans who have been given a reason to fight. She looked at each face on the bridge. Tomorrow they will learn, and they will never forget. In his own ship, the destroyer called Nightfall, Captain Nathan Cole gathered his pilots for a final briefing. Lieutenant Chris Brennan, the leader of the fighter squadron, stood at the front of the group. Our target is the Valorian homeworld's orbital defense grid, Nathan explained. Those platforms are the most heavily armed installations in Council space. If we take them down, the rest of the Valorian fleet will be defenseless. Chris studied the tactical display. Those platforms have overlapping fire zones. Approaching them directly would be suicide, which is why we're not approaching directly, Nathan said. He highlighted a gap in the defense grid. There's a blind spot here, created by a maintenance asteroid that blocks the sensors. We'll send the fighters through that gap while the destroyers draw fire from the main platforms. Chris nodded slowly. It's risky, but it could work. It will work, Nathan said firmly, because failure is not an option. Ambassador Mercer trusted me to bring his message home. I won't let his death be meaningless. The hours passed slowly in the darkness near Neptune. Crews made final preparations. Some wrote letters to loved ones that might never be sent. Others sat in quiet meditation, preparing their minds for battle. Admiral Wells did not sleep. She stood at the viewport of the Sovereign, watching the stars and thinking about the friends she had lost. Daniel Mercer had believed in peace. He had dedicated his life to building bridges between species. The Council had killed him for it. Now, Patricia would build a different kind of bridge. A bridge made of fire and steel. One that would connect humanity's pain to the Council's understanding. At exactly midnight. Earth time, she gave the order. All ships, prepare for faster-than-light jump. Target coordinates confirmed. We launch in 60 seconds. Across the fleet, engines powered up. Navigation systems locked onto targets spread across hundreds of light years. 400 ships aligned themselves with their destinations. 30 seconds. Crews strapped into battle stations. Weapons systems armed. Shields activated. 10 seconds. Patricia took a deep breath. All ships jump. 400 points of light flashed in the darkness, and the fleet vanished. The storm was about to break. The alarms on Vareth Prime began screaming at exactly the same moment as the alarms on 11 other worlds across Council space. Sensor operators stared at their screens in disbelief as hundreds of ships appeared from faster-than-light travel simultaneously. "This is impossible," whispered the Valorian defense commander. "Where did they come from?" The answer came in the form of plasma torpedoes that tore through the first line of defense stations before anyone could react. The human ships moved with terrible precision, each vessel knowing exactly where to strike. On the bridge of the USS Sovereign, Admiral Patricia Wells watched the battle unfold on her tactical display. 12 green clusters represented her strike groups. Red dots marked Council defense positions that were vanishing one by one. Strike. Group 3 reports orbital platforms destroyed over the Keth homeworld, her communications officer announced. Strike Group 7 beginning approach to Valorian primary defenses. Patricia nodded. "What about civilian casualties?" "None reported, Admiral. Our targeting is holding. Military installations only." In Council space near the Valorian homeworld, Captain Nathan Cole's destroyer Nightfall led the charge against the massive orbital defense platforms. The structures were enormous, bristling with weapons that should have torn any attacking fleet apart, but the platforms had been designed to fight enemies that attacked in straight lines, using predictable tactics. Humans did not fight that way. "All fighters launch," Nathan commanded. "Lieutenant Brennan, take your squadron through the gap. We'll keep their attention." Chris Brennan's voice came back sharp and focused. "Copy that, Captain. Eagle Squadron, on me. 20 small fighters." Broke away from the main force and dove toward the asteroid that blocked the sensors. Behind them, the human destroyers opened fire on the defense platforms, drawing massive return fire. The Nightfall shuddered as an energy beam grazed its shields. "Shields at 70%, the tactical officer reported. "Hold position," Nathan ordered. "Give the fighters time." Chris led his squadron through the narrow gap, weaving between asteroids and debris. The defense platform's guns swung wildly, trying to track the tiny ships, but the humans were too fast and too agile. "Target the power cores," Chris commanded. "One clean hit should take down each platform." The fighters spread out, each pilot selecting a different target. Chris aimed his own ship at the largest platform, the one controlling the entire defense grid. His targeting computer locked on, and he fired. The plasma torpedo struck the platform's core, and the entire structure erupted in a ball of flame. Secondary explosions rippled across the grid as platform after platform lost power and went dark. "Defense grid is down," Chris shouted. "All ships, push forward," Nathan commanded. "Clear a path to the planet." Within 40 minutes of the first shots being fired, the Valorian homeworld's defenses were destroyed. The human fleet surrounded the planet but did not fire on the surface. There were billions of civilians below, and humanity had promised not to become what the Council had accused them of being. Similar scenes played out across Council space. The Keth Collective's military stations fell in under an hour. The Dreth Empire's border fortresses crumbled before the human assault. Species that had laughed at humanity 3 weeks ago now watched in terror as their defenses vanished. On Vareth Prime, High Counselor Zethran stood in the council chamber as reports of disaster poured in from every direction. His 4 eyes darted frantically from screen to screen, unable to process what he was seeing. 400 ships, he whispered. "They have 400 ships. Our intelligence said 40. Counselor Yemeth stood nearby, their wings folded tight against their body. "I warned you. I told you not to underestimate them. How did they hide so many vessels? How did they develop such weapons?" "Because they are survivors," Yemeth said simply. "They have spent their entire existence fighting for survival against threats both external and internal. War is in their blood. We saw their peaceful side and thought that was all they were. The chamber shook as human ships took positions around the station. A communications signal cut through all channels, overriding every system on the station. Admiral Patricia Wells' face appeared on every screen. "Attention Vareth Prime and the Galactic Council," she said. "This is Admiral Patricia Wells of the United Earth Combined Fleet. We have surrounded your station and eliminated your military defenses. Your fleet has been destroyed or has surrendered." Zethran sank into his chair, his gray skin turning pale. "We are not here to conquer your worlds or enslave your people," Patricia continued. "We are here because 3 weeks ago, you murdered our ambassador and his security officer in cold blood. You broadcast their deaths as a warning. You thought we would be afraid." Her eyes seemed to look directly at Zethran through the screen. "We are not afraid. We are angry. But unlike you, we know the difference between justice and murder. High Counselor Zethran, you have 1 hour to surrender yourself to human custody. If you do not surrender, we will send Marines to retrieve you. The choice is yours." The transmission ended. The council chamber fell into chaos. Representatives screamed and argued, some demanding Zethran's surrender, others insisting they fight to the last. Guards rushed to defend the High Counselor, while others abandoned their posts entirely. Zethran sat frozen, unable to believe what had happened. 3 weeks ago, he had been the most powerful being in the galaxy. Now human ships surrounded his station, and there was nothing he could do to stop them. "I will not surrender," he said weakly. "I am the High Counselor. I represent. You represent nothing but your own arrogance," Yemeth interrupted. "You killed 2 innocent people to make a point. Now the humans have made their point. Accept the consequences." The hour passed quickly. When Zethran failed to surrender, the human Marines came. They moved through the station with terrifying efficiency. Council guards who resisted were stunned and captured, not killed. The humans fought without hatred, without rage. They fought like professionals completing a job. When they reached the council chamber, Zethran made one final attempt to resist. He drew an energy pistol and aimed it at the lead Marine. The Marine didn't hesitate. A single shot from a non-lethal weapon sent Zethran to the floor, unconscious but alive. Captain Nathan Cole entered the chamber moments later. He looked at the fallen High Counselor without satisfaction, without triumph. He felt only the heavy weight of duty. "Secure the prisoner," he ordered. "Admiral Wells will want to see him." As the Marines lifted Zethran and carried him away, Nathan walked to the center of the chamber. He looked down at the floor where Daniel Mercer and Katie Shaw had died. Someone had cleaned the blood, but the marks were still there. 2 shadows where 2 good people had stood their ground. "We came," Nathan said quietly to the empty spot. "We didn't forget." The battle was over. Now came the harder part. High Counselor Zethran stood in the very chamber where he had ordered the deaths of 2 innocent humans. But now he was not standing as the ruler of the galaxy. He was standing as a prisoner, his hands bound in front of him, surrounded by human Marines who watched him with cold, disciplined eyes. The council seats that had once been filled with his allies were now empty. The other representatives had been confined to their quarters, awaiting judgment. Only Counselor Yemeth remained free, standing in the corner of the chamber as a witness to what was about to happen. Admiral Patricia Wells entered through the great doors. She wore her dress uniform, every medal and ribbon earned through decades of service. Behind her came Commander Derek Holt and Captain Nathan Cole. They took positions on either side of the speaking platform where Zethran had once passed his judgment. A holographic display flickered to life, and the face of President Marcus Grant appeared. He looked tired but determined, addressing the chamber from Earth. "High Counselor Zethran," Marcus began, "you have been brought before this court to answer for crimes against humanity. Specifically, the premeditated murder of Ambassador Daniel Mercer and Lieutenant Katie Shaw. Zethran's 4 eyes narrowed with defiance. I am the High Counselor of the Galactic Council. You have no authority over me. The Galactic Council no longer exists, Patricia said. Its military has been destroyed. Its member species have requested peace. You have no power left, Zethran. All you have are the crimes you committed. Commander Holt stepped forward with a datapad. We have evidence that the images used to accuse humanity of territorial violations were fabricated by Valorian intelligence services. We have recordings of council meetings where you argued for humanity's elimination. We have testimony from council members who opposed the execution but were overruled. Zethran's defiance began to crack. You do not understand. Humanity was a threat. Your species breeds too quickly, expands too fast. In 100 years, you would have outnumbered all of us combined. So you killed our ambassador to slow us down? Patricia asked. To send a message. To show your people that the galaxy was not theirs to take. President Grant's voice cut through the chamber like ice. Ambassador Mercer spent his entire life working for peace. He believed that humans and aliens could live together as equals. He trusted you with his life. Then he was a fool, Zethran said. Patricia's hand tightened into a fist, but she kept her voice steady. The council had another option. You could have talked to us. You could have negotiated limits on human expansion. You could have treated us as partners instead of pests. Partners? Zethran laughed, though the sound was hollow. How can you be partners with a species that destroys everything it touches? We don't destroy everything, Nathan spoke up. We build. We create. We protect. You just never bothered to learn that about us. The chamber fell silent while President Grant cleared his throat. Zethran, former High Counselor of the Galactic Council. This court finds you guilty of murder, conspiracy, and crimes against a sovereign species. Under human law, you could be sentenced to death. Zethran's gray skin went pale. But we are not like you, Marcus continued. We do not execute prisoners. We do not murder people to make points. Your sentence is life imprisonment on a human facility world, where you will have time to consider what you have done. Zethran stared in disbelief. You're not going to kill me? No, Patricia said. We want you alive. We want you to watch as humans and aliens build the peace you tried to prevent. We want you to see your failure every single day for the rest of your life. The Marines came forward and led Zethran away. He did not resist. The fight had gone out of him completely. After he was gone, Counselor Yemeth approached the platform with slow, careful steps. Admiral Wells, Yemeth said, on behalf of those council members who opposed the execution, I wish to offer our deepest apologies for what was done to your people. Patricia looked at the insect-like being with measured respect. You warned them. You tried to stop it. Not hard enough. Yemeth's wings drooped with shame. I should have done more. I should have protected your ambassador. You couldn't have stopped Zethran alone. But you can help us now. Patricia gestured to the empty council seats. The old council was based on fear and power. We want to build something better. A new galactic assembly where every species has equal voice, where disputes are settled through discussion instead of murder. You would trust us? Yemeth asked. After what we allowed to happen? President Grant answered through the hologram. Trust must be earned, but it has to start somewhere. We're asking you to help us start. Yemeth was quiet for a long moment. Then their wings lifted slightly, a sign of hope among their people. I will help, and I believe others will too. Many species were afraid of the old council. They will welcome the chance to build something new. Over the following weeks, human forces withdrew from most of council space. They kept defensive positions near strategic points, but they did not occupy alien worlds or demand tribute. Instead, they sent diplomats to begin the slow work of building peace. The new Galactic Assembly held its first meeting on Vareth Prime, in the same chamber where Daniel Mercer had died. Human representatives sat side by side with aliens who had once considered them primitives. The discussions were difficult, sometimes angry, but they were discussions, not executions. Admiral Patricia Wells did not attend the political meetings. She had a different task to complete. On the morning before the human fleet departed for home, Patricia walked alone into the council chamber. The room was empty now, the seats waiting for the new assembly to fill them. She walked to the center of the floor, to the spot where Daniel and Katie had fallen. In her hand, she carried a small metal plaque, simple and unadorned. She knelt down and placed the plaque on the floor. Ambassador Daniel Mercer and Lieutenant Katie Shaw, she read aloud. They came in peace. They died with courage. They will never be forgotten. She stood and looked at the plaque for a long moment. We came for you, Daniel, she said quietly. We showed them what humanity really is. Not the monsters they feared, but not the weaklings they dismissed either. We're something else entirely. Something they'll never underestimate again. She turned and walked toward the doors. Captain Nathan Cole was waiting outside. The fleet is ready to jump, Admiral, he said. We're going home. Patricia nodded. It's time. As they walked toward the landing bay, Nathan glanced back at the chamber. Do you think it will work? The assembly? The peace treaties? I don't know, Patricia admitted. Peace is harder than war. It takes patience and forgiveness and trust. Those things don't come easily to anyone, human or alien. But we have to try. Yes, we have to try. Because Daniel believed we could. And he was right about a lot of things. The human fleet departed Vareth Prime that afternoon. 400 ships that had arrived as conquerors left as something else. They left as a species that had proven its strength but chosen mercy. On Earth, the celebrations lasted for days. But they were not celebrations of war. They were celebrations of survival, of unity, of humanity's place in a galaxy that had finally learned to respect them. In Geneva, a monument was built to honor Daniel Mercer and Katie Shaw. Their names were carved in stone beneath. A simple message. They taught us that peace requires strength. They showed us that strength requires heart. And across the galaxy, the story spread. Species that had never heard of humanity now spoke of them with wonder. Not as primitives or barbarians, but as something new. A species that could have conquered the galaxy, but chose not to. A species that understood that true power was not about destruction. It was about building something worth protecting. Humanity had entered the galactic stage, and they would never be ignored again.